Hello, all. So, to all of you who have joined on my live stream, thank you so much for being here. It's really good to have you all here. So, I would request you, for all of you who is on watching this live, please let me know on the comments or a chat or the chat where you are dialing in from, where you're watching me from, the state or the country and the city you're from, and that'll be awesome. That'll kick off our session today. So, what are we going to talk about today? Um, I've been thinking about it. I didn't specifically have any big topics, so I thought I'll sort of speak off the cuffs today and talk about a few things that I thought is very, very important for career growth in general, and the things that I feel like a lot of people, especially um, you know people who have just started their career. I don't want to sort of label anybody Gen Z, Gen Alpha. And I just don't think that makes any sense. It's just that priorities change over a period of time. So that's basically all that is to it. So, for all of you who have just joined, right, a lot of you, I understand, may not have big goals, right? And that was the case with me as well. I didn't have many big goals or any big goals. I basically, if you know me, I've spoken about this in the past as well, that I just basically thought that I should get a job. And when I did get a job, the first thought that I had was, well, I will work here in this whatever organization for about a year, and then I'll jump, get a better pay, maybe a good 20-30% increase in pay in India, right? And that'll be it. But then I think one good thing that happened to me by accident, and it wasn't something that I thought. I wasn't someone who had any big aspirations. I just wanted to be chill. Just wanted to have fun. But something that I saw at work sort of triggered something in me that got me to become aggressively ambitious about things. And one of them was, like I said in one of my previous live session as well, was a manager that I saw, and I saw how good this person was, and I wanted to be like him. That's what triggered it off. But then I became ambitious from there on, right? So I've had a goal. The first goal, in fact, the serious goal that I had was that I want to be a team leader, a people manager, first line people manager within 2 years. And I just joined the organization. It is an aggressive target because when I joined the company, I had three other seniors with about 4 to 5 years experience. They were reporting to the team manager, and I wanted to be the team manager. Not necessarily within that same team. I was sort of keeping my eyes and ears open for any opportunity that comes. For me, what was important was that I became a team manager. I earned the rights to be that, right? So like I said, I worked hard, 16 hours a day, and so on and so forth. Big story. I don't want to get into that. If you want, you can watch my previous live video, and I speak about that in detail. But anyway, the goal, right? I when I think back to what had happened, what was the reason I grew in my career as quickly as I did, and all the things that I've achieved, and almost took a early retirement at the age of 42. I'm going to turn 43 very soon, and I started my own passion project of wanting to coach, mentor, and consult people in their careers and for their career growth. So, how did that come to be? Has a lot of what I'm going to say, what a lot of things fell into place. The first one, like I said, is the goals, right? I had a goal. I made enough money to be able to be confident in having goals and to sort of retire early and so on and so forth. But it wouldn't have started off if I hadn't had that goal to become a people manager, because that was like the first domino of a lot of things that came after that. So, goal is important. Why? Because all of us, I truly believe this, right? All of us come with very unique talent. All of us are unique in our own way, right? And if we don't apply ourselves, all of that talent, all of that uniqueness, the brilliance that we individually bring together is just waste. It's going to go nowhere. I can give you this analogy. So you must have seen some of these really huge earth movers, right? Huge machines, very powerful. You would see some of one of these things just push and break a wall, a concrete wall, like it's nothing. Can you imagine that power, the amount of strength it has? And imagine your head, your brain, your uniqueness, your talent that is very, very unique to you is that earth mover, that bulldozer, right? And now you don't know what to do with it. You have no goals. You just have the machine and you don't know what to do with it. You just let it sit there, or you turn it on and leave it. Most likely than not, you're going to let it sit there. What is the point of all of that if you're not going to use it, right? All of that power, the strength that this amazing earth mover has, what is the point of it if you're not going to use it, right? So that is one big factor. And if you do anything with it without a goal, like you turn it on and let it be, it's going to crash into something and it's going to be a disaster, right? It's one of these two things that could happen. Now, imagine you know exactly what to do with it. You know how to dig or how to build an amazingly beautiful tunnel with it that can lead you to the other side of the mountain, right? That's your goal. That's the what goal does. That's the purpose. You have to have a purpose. If you don't, it's like you have a ship that is just, you know, turned on and left to do its, thing. It's more likely than not going to sink or get marooned in some island somewhere if it leaves the harbor in the first place and doesn't cause huge disaster, right? But then if you do know exactly where to go, if you are captaining the whole ship, you will get to a destination. Doesn't matter what that destination is. Every one of us has different destination. Another thing is some ships are going to be very fast. They're very powerful. They'll get to the destination faster. Some ships might be slow, and that is absolutely okay as long as you get to where you want to get. And that's it. That's really, quite frankly, if you think about it, life's purpose, right? So I think all of us as individuals, if you want to be a good leader, decent leader, and when I say leader, I don't mean it only in the sense of in a corporate, people leader scale or with that in mind. It's broader. It is much broader. I mean, from being a good leader, it is about being a good human being, being considerate about others, being aware of what your emotions and what your actions are doing to others, being aware of your own emotions and your own actions, what is it doing to you? That self awareness. That's what makes a great leader and a good human being, most of all, right? And if you want to be a good human being, and if you do become one, you will automatically, without much of an effort, be a great leader as well. And then career and everything else sort of falls into place. And that's what happened to me. Like I said, the first domino that I discovered out of accident, I wasn't someone who was, very self-reflective and learned something about making a good life, building a good life. I didn't care about a lot of those things. I just wanted to have fun. But then by accident, I stumbled on something like this, having a goal, and that was the first big domino that led to everything else after that. Soon, I also learned something else. and to me that was very, very powerful, is financial safety, right? And I say this very carefully. A lot of us know what our incomes are, what is the monthly salary you earn, or if it is by monthly, or whatever it is, right? You have your salary comes in, you know exactly to the point where what exactly that is. Now, in the comment section, I want you to tell me what is your exact expense on a monthly basis. Split it out by, and I don't want to know all the kinds of expenses. Just tell me what is your fixed expenses that you have to have. Just give it to me. And if you're struggling with it, let me know about that as well. And I'm pretty sure every one of you is struggling with it. And that is where financial planning starts, right? Super important. I know a lot of younger folks are so sort of, they got sucked into this, you know, gratification that they have to have the best phones. I know people who had joined, I was a director, but then I was building a new team across the world. One of the team was based out of Bangalore, and I was looking at some of these kids. In the first salary, what they did was buy an iPhone. And I know they can't afford an iPhone. And when I asked one of them, they basically said they took a personal loan to get their iPhone. Now, for some people, that might be a more convenient option, but if it isn't, well, and it's you could have done so much more with that money. You could have doubled it in about 7 years if you had invested it in the right place, right? And that's a big sort of a factor, a variable in how good a leader you will be. And I'll explain to you how exactly that works out. Now, if you are financially insecure, so you don't have enough savings, you don't have enough investments to back you up, what is likely to happen is that you will become, even if you are a leader right now, you will become a yes man or a yes woman or a yes person, I'd rather say, right? You will have to say yes to anything and everything your manager or your organization asks you to do. For example, you get a bad promotion and they say, okay, just give you 5% increase in salary. What are the chances you will say no to that? What are the chances you will boldly say, if I don't have 15%, I don't want this promotion? What are the chances you will do that? I did that. So I became an assistant manager in 2000, I think it was 11 or 12. Either ways, the point I'm trying to make is that I was given a promotion in the month of January, and the R in the organization I was working with, your performance cycle and then increase in pay, yearly increments happens on in the month of April. So my manager gave me a very meager 5% increase and said, "Oh, you are lucky, right? In the performance review, you wouldn't have gotten any much this year because that year was terribly bad because of the whole bubble, the housing bubble that had 2008 crash and all of that, right? So the company wasn't doing great, and he basically said, "Oh, you are lucky, you got a 5%. Rest of us, more likely than not, are not going to get anything in the month of April." He basically said that I will most definitely not get anything in the month of April because I got something in the month of January. So your yearly increase is just this much, but you're getting a promotion. Congratulations. And I just took it. I didn't say a word. I was just happy that I'm getting paid, to be honest. Now, I think back to that day and I'll tell you what, one of the biggest problem was that I didn't have enough financial backing. I just bought a home, and I had a huge mortgage or home loan, like we say in India, and I didn't want to miss any increase that I was going to get. So 5% is, yes, I'll take it. It was pathetic. The best part was, even though the company wasn't doing great in the month of April, everybody got at least 8% increase. So I lost out with the promotion. If I hadn't got a promotion, I would have gotten 8%, as everybody's got it that year, yearly increment. I didn't say a word because I was happy I had the job and I got that 5% increase, and I was I just let it go. Thinking back, it was because I didn't have a choice. Or at least I didn't feel like I had a choice. I didn't feel like I had the opportunity to even negotiate or even raise that as a concern. I basically put up a smile and said yes and just walked away. Huge regret, right? I'll tell you another example, and it isn't mine. This is about another manager that I was speaking with. I was coaching, and this leader was asked by his manager to cover up for a mistake that the managers and their peer had done. This amazingly brilliant guy, right? He just said, okay, I'll take it up. You know why? He just wanted to please the manager. And he, again, didn't feel like he had the choice. The first thing that I asked is, how's your bank balance? How are you doing? And his answer was, not good. I've got quite a few, you know, liabilities. He owes quite a few um, bit of money to lenders, and he just didn't want to take any chances. So he basically said, well, okay, fine. He took the blame. Now, if these are values that you don't want to work with, right? If those were not your values, these are not the principles that you want to live by and work in, having to do that just because you were financially insecure is a bad thing. I'll give you another example is where you have to make a tough choice. You have to make a difficult choice. And I'm not talking about having to um, fire people, which is going to be difficult and it's got nothing to do with your financial safety. But let's say you had to take a decision for your department that is in the long term is going to be good, but your manager disagrees. Just your manager, right? But then if you don't have financial safety, and when I say financial safety, you have to have saved up enough to cover your costs for 12 months minimum. That's what make that. You could do with 6 months as well, but then 12 months makes you really really comfortable in doing what you value, your principles, your values. You can uphold them with 12 months of savings because you will be backed up by that money even if you were fired tomorrow, right? And that makes a huge difference because I'll tell you what, make an observation, right? Look around in the office and think about all the people who you think, wow, he's or she is very bold. They're able to say what they want to say and they're able to do what they want to do. Think about them and think about what you think they how well they do financially, right? Think about it. If you don't know, just start to inquire about it, you know. And I'll tell you what, the big difference is going to be, and I can assure you that with 100% guarantee, that it has got a lot to do with the fact that they are financially secure. They don't care if somebody fires them tomorrow, and they are comfortable in their own skin. They hold their value up and they will live by that value no matter what, right? So that is what financial safety does. And that's the reason I asked you how many of you know what your expense is, because that is where it starts. If you don't know what your monthly expense is, you are most likely not going to know how secure you are or how insecure you are. And there's a way to do that. The best way to do that is to take 3 months of your fixed expenses, exactly what it is. All you have to do is pull up your bank statement. And if you know numerous.io, that is a tool, a paid one, right, which is AI that you can pull into Excel and just ask it question like how you would prompt, right? And it can average, or you can use your own formulas, right? Average your expenses, pull out just the expenses that you've had, categorize, then think about any other expenses that you might have had, right? put it in a spreadsheet, and take out the monthly expense that you have. These have to be absolute fixed expenses that you have. Like, say for example, if you're paying a rent or your mortgage, or your food expenses, right? Your if you- or could be your fuel expenses. Those are all going to be fixed non-negotiable expenses that you will have to do, right? So those are your fixed expenses. Take it for 3 months, average the 3 months. If you can pull it up for up to 6 months, you will get a better figure, but 3 months should be good enough. So those 3 months of expense, average it, basically add it up and divide it by 3, and that's your expense. Now, that's your monthly expense, average monthly expense, right? Now, what you do is multiply that by 12, and that's your safety net. That's what you have to have as liquid cash in the bank account or checking account. You should be able to have absolute liquidity on that amount, and you should be just able to pull that whenever you want, right? So that's what I'm talking about. That's your safety net. So if you build financial safety, you will be a much confident leader. Yeah, you will be able to take much bolder decision. You will be able to say no, no matter who comes and asks. If it doesn't align with your values and your principle, you will be able to say no confidently without worrying too much, and you will be able to negotiate better. If there are salary increment opportunities, you will be able to stand your ground and say no, I'll need it. If not, I'm not going to be able to apply myself 100%, or I'm going to look for another job, or right. So that gives you all the confidence you need to be a better person, better leader, and stand by your team and support your team confidently without being worried about what happens to me if I get fired tomorrow, right? So that's one. And then the third thing, hard work alone doesn't grow your career, doesn't help you grow in your career. So there was this time when somebody told me you'll need to build much better visibility, right? And I was like, I was offended by that. Not by myself. There was another person along with me, and I was influenced by her. And she's like, how can he say, or how can they say that we need to be more visible? What does that mean? Does that mean that we'll have to sort of hoot our horns everywhere? We'll have to keep, boasting about ourselves? What does that mean, right? So I was like, yeah, no, that's so offensive. Is it that hard work doesn't count for anything? It's just going to be all about visibility. That's how I thought about it in the beginning, right? And I know a lot of people still think about it that way, and they say, oh, hard work is enough. If I work hard, I put out the results, that's enough. Well, early in your career, yes, it makes a little bit of a difference because you're establishing yourself. You need something as a foundation on which you can stand up and sort of build your visibility. And it basically means you pick up a mic and start hooting your own horns in some shape or form. And I know a lot of people aren't comfortable just doing that. I'll get to that a little later. But then the point I'm trying to make is, it's important to be influential. I call it the influence, right? It's important to be influential because if you want to get anything done, it's going to be impossible to do without influence. Even within your team, you may have, say, for example, you are a team manager, you're a manager, and you have a team of about, say, 10 people reporting to you. Now, without influence, you will never succeed as a manager. I remember this one time when I had moved on to a new team, and the new manager that I was reporting to asked me this one question. He basically asked, Rakesh, how many people will do things because you asked them to do and not because of anything else? He said, what if, even if I go, their skip manager, I go and ask them, they will say, sorry, we are very busy. There's a lot of things to do. This doesn't fall in our priority, or some excuse to get away from it. And they'll use that excuse to get away from having to do what I asked them to do. But because you asked them to do, they'll just do it no matter what. How many of your team members will do it? And I'd just taken over the team, so I didn't know the team very much. So I basically said, sorry, I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is going to be. And he said, look, that's what makes a good manager, people manager. If you want to be a people leader, that's what makes a difference. So, and I'll tell you what, it does. When I thought back to it and I realized, yeah, it is very, very true. You have to be influential even within your team, right? You have to be able to have some kind of an, it's again, it's not authority. Don't confuse influence with authority, right? If you're a people leader and if you're going to be the one who is going to run performance evaluation of your team every year, of course you have authority over them. So they might do things because you have that authority over them, but that's not the good true mark of a good leader. The true mark of a good leader is getting things done not because you have the authority over them, but because they respect and they want to please you, and they want to be your friend so much that they wouldn't mind working 2 extra hours to make sure they do what you ask them to do, even within the team, right? Now, outside of the team, to your manager, to your boss, it becomes that much more important, right? You have to have an influence over all of them, your peers, your cross functional managers, right? Your manager's peers, and your skip manager. You have to have an influence over them. Without that, it wouldn't work. My own promotion, a lot of them happened because of just influence. I was looking for opportunities where I could have influence on as many managers as possible, in the sense that I just want them to know how good I am, right? So, like I said in my previous live session as well, the most important thing is to be able to put your best foot forward, which means basically you showcase your strength, you work on your strength, you apply your strength in as many opportunities as you can, and put it in front of the people who are decision makers. It could be manager in another department who may come up with a new opportunity, right? It could be a skip level manager's manager in your department or outside of that, but having influence, making sure your name appears in their circle as much as possible, hopefully in a good way. Sometimes even in a bad way is not such a bad thing, by the way, but hopefully in a good way will clear your path to grow in your career. If you don't have any of that, that's going to be hard work for you, because like I said, in any team, right? If you had 10 people in your team, or I would say it's not necessarily your team, but you have 10 competitors for a role, right? You knowingly, unknowingly are going to be stack ranked amongst those 10 people. You have one rank. So you could fall anywhere from between 1 to 10. And it depends on how good you are. The foundation is working really well and producing good results, plus being able to sort of make sure that people know how good you are, right? So that is what creates influence. To be able to let people out, make awareness, build awareness about yourself, right? People should be knowing you, because when you apply for that role, your aim is not to necessarily be able to crack the interview and then they ask you, oh, you've done such a good job in your interview, so let's I'll give you the offer. It doesn't work like that. Most managers have preferred candidate. Your aim should be to become the preferred candidate, right? Because fact is, your hard work is important. Yeah, that's what lays down the foundation. But more than hard work, what is more important is your ability to stay visible, right? If you're not visible, it's not going to help you much. Yeah, because I don't know if you've seen one of my recent LinkedIn posts. I say something very interesting in that, and again, I coined it out of just a conversation I was having with another coachee of mine, right? What listen to this, and if you want, write it down. Your results got you here, right? Where you are, right? That's what the foundation. Your reputation will take you further. That's your influence, your ability to influence, and your reputation will take you further. But your visibility will decide whether any one of these gets noticed, right? So your reputation and your results, if that needs to be noticed, only way you can do that is by building visibility. And visibility is super important if you want to get promoted. Yeah. So that said, I'll move on to the next point that I had. I'm trying to get to where I made that notes. I seem to have misplaced it. Right. So after that, another thing that I will talk about is your um, ability to stay consistent. Again, I spoke about that at length in my previous video as well. If you're not consistent, you're not dependable, right? I've made decisions on whether somebody gets promoted, gets hired into a new job, even if they were good performers. For me, what was important was consistent performance. Sometimes, and I think it's true for anybody, right? Sometimes it's more valuable for you to be consistent than being the top performer because you're dependable. If I ask you to do ABC, you will deliver ABC. But if you are inconsistent, you're likely to deliver A today, and I can possibly forget about the B and C tomorrow because you'll never deliver it, right? But if you delivered A beautifully, you've done an amazing job with it. But if I'm not able to depend on you, if I can't tell for sure that things assigned to you is going to be done and it's going to be done well, I'm not going to trust you with a job, right? So that's a quick one. That's very, very important. Now, another thing that I will talk about is if you are a leader, if you're a people leader, one thing that is really, really important to be aware of, and I say this carefully, right? I'm not just saying the awareness section bit just out of turn. It's actually a well meant phrase. You should never ever try and treat your all your team members equally. And invariably, most people leaders, if you are new, you may not realize this, but if you have spent some time being a people leader, invariably everybody falls into this method of work where you will not treat and you wouldn't want to treat everybody in your team equally. So this is a controversial thing, right? So now when I say equally, I don't mean being unfair or being biased towards any specific individual or individuals, right? I don't mean it in that sense. What I mean when I say equally is quite different from being partial to somebody, right? So that's a different thing altogether. And I don't say, and I don't mean being partial, right? So what I mean by not treating everybody equal is that you have to have an inner circle. If you don't have an inner circle, and if you are like, okay, everything goes through everybody in my team, it's not going to work out for you in the long run, right? In fact, you will be perceived as being biased anyway in that case, right? Because somebody is going to work hard. So I'll go back to a story again. So there was this, I don't want to call out the name of the person because I don't have specific implicit permission from that person, but there was one industry leader that was asked to come to our office and give a talk, sort of like a keynote speech. Yeah. And he was talking about he runs multiple companies and he is very well known in the business circle. Now, one thing he said in between somewhere in his speech was that he has an inner circle. He has about 25 people reporting to him directly, but he has an inner circle of about 5 people, and everything that he discusses that with the five people first, and then lets that go out to the other 20 people, so 25 people. Yeah. So that's what happens. And I got stuck in that conversation, sort of. He went on about the speech. It was for about 40-45 minutes, but I was, this particular thing that he said, I got hooked to it. So I was I thinking about it, and to me I was like, that doesn't sound right. Because if this well-known great leader says that he has five people with whom he makes the decision, and the rest of them come to know about it after a decision has been made along with these five people. Isn't he being biased or partial towards the you know five people? And, what about the other 20 people? Will they not be offended? Will they not think it is unfair for them to be treated that way? And the fact is that I had the opportunity to have a quick chat with him during a lunch socializing session. Were having lunch, and I approached him and I asked him, "Sir, you mentioned about your inner circle. You said you speak with your five close inner circle people and then discuss that with the larger group. Wouldn't the larger group be offended because you're, you know, being partial towards the five people?" And he said, this was his first reaction. He simply asked me, "Rakesh, okay, you tell me this. Every year you run performance assessment, do you or do you not?" I said, "Yes, I do." "And in that performance assessment, do you give everybody the best performance rating?" I said, "No, I don't." So he said, "Aren't you being biased? Aren't you being, aren't you treating the best performer differently? And wouldn't the rest of the team feel bad about it?" And I said, "Well, I have to differentiate. How else am I going to drive performance?" And he's like, "Okay, so why do you think it is okay for you to do it once a year, but not every day? How is that different?" And that struck me. And he said, "Give it a thought. If you still feel that is wrong, let's have a discussion." He basically said that and left. And of course, when I went back to my desk and was thinking about it, I realized that I have an inner circle myself. It's just I just wasn't willing to acknowledge it. Right? It was uncomfortable to acknowledge that I had an inner circle, because I remembered thinking back then, if I had a big incident, client escalation or something like that, I know I which person I would go to exactly. Right? I had one person I'll go to. I'll reach out to that person and I ask that person to solve the problem. I wouldn't go to anybody else. In fact, the rest of the team would go to that same person. Also happens to me be one of the best performers in the team, right? So that is what I mean. Stop treating everybody equally. Of course, every once in a while, somebody is going to reach out and say, "Rakesh, you seem to be giving all the opportunities to this one person." And to that, my simple question is, I am not giving that opportunity because there is a favor towards that person. It is only because I know that person is going to deliver. I'm happy for you to start delivering consistently and as per my expectation consistently, right? And I'll start giving you as well. I'll treat you exactly the way I treat that person, but you need to scale up. You need to be able to do things that other person is being able to do. And if you can prove that, well, you're going to be in that inner circle, right? Of course, don't go about socializing the whole inner circle, and don't keep calling it out saying that, "Oh, I have an inner circle." That's not the purpose of it. But the point I'm saying, trying to make is, I know a lot of leaders who try to sort of distribute their attention to all 10 people if they have 10 people in their team. And I think it is a huge mistake, because what you're doing is you're depriving the best performer from having more attention because they did well. And if you are putting in more attention at a person who possibly is not performing well, that's even worse, right? Right? Or you're putting too much attention or equal amount of attention to person who is not willing to perform or is not unable to perform. Well, unable to perform, you should give that person a chance, right? You should provide them, facilitate how they can upskill themselves, or if whatever needs to be done, if it is training or whatever. Of course, you give that attention, but you're not actively doing it yourself. You're assigning somebody to help that person, right? So that is, of course, you want to do. But if there is someone unwilling to put 100% of their effort, what is the point of you spending same amount of time with them? Manage them out if you can, right? If it is not something you can salvage, if it is not something that if it is somebody who is pulling the entire team's performance down, it's your duty to make sure you manage them out, because they probably are uh, square peg in a round hole. Basically, that they are not suitable for the job. So you need to put them away and hope that they find the right kind of job for themselves. So with that, right, these are I thought these are some of the things that I would want to touch upon today. With that, I'll end today's conversation. If there are any questions, please feel free to post it on in the comment section. If I and I'll try and answer them. If you I would encourage you to please, all of you, go to my website www.rakeshravindran.com. There are some really interesting things there. If you want to subscribe to my weekly newsletter, please feel free to do that. If you aren't already following me on LinkedIn, please do that too, because I post pretty much every day with some really good content, lessons I've learned. I just make sure that I, pass that knowledge on as frequently as I can. And of course, I have a YouTube channel as well. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe and post comments there as well. If I see there is any specific trend towards which I should be making content, I'll be more aware of those. So please feel free to um, you know put the comments in there. If you have any questions, post it there, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. That said, of course, I do also have free one-on-one scheduler that you can access from my website. Please feel free to go ahead and book some time with me if you really want to talk about some specific issues that you are facing in your career, or if you want me to help you out with anything that's career related and leadership related. Please feel free to do that. I'll be more than happy to talk to you. With that, I will address any questions there might be. I don't see anything as of now, although there are quite a few of you listening and watching me. Thank you so much for all of you who are here. And yeah, if there are no other questions, I will close today's call. Uh, Not a call, it's today's video. Or with that, and I'll see you in the next one.